Between 1764 and 1767, there was over 100 people that were killed in rural France. Their attackers were described as like a wolf, but not a wolf. It was shot and got back up. Children fought it off with sticks. And the king even placed a bounty worth what today would be $200,000. And even after it was killed, the attacks continued. This is the Umber Vale. And tonight, we're examining the shadow of Bete du Gevaudan. Our story tonight takes place in Gevaudan, a rural and heavily forested region in south-central France. The year is 1764, and France is still recovering from the 7 Years' War. Resources are strained, morale is fragile, and much of the countryside is poor, isolated, and dependent on livestock for survival. But what begins in Gevaudan will go far beyond what anybody would consider normal. Now, 2 months before the first official recorded death, a woman tending cattle reported being attacked by something that she described as like a wolf, yet not. She survived only because her herd fought the animal off. Then, on June 30th, 1764, a 14-year-old girl named Jeanne Boulet was killed while tending to her family's livestock. She was widely considered as the first confirmed fatal victim of what soon would be known as the Beast, and she would not be the last. Over the next 3 years, attacks multiplied. Women and children were most frequently targeted, likely because they were the ones tending to the animals in open fields. But adult men were not spared either. Bodies were discovered mutilated, throats torn out, faces disfigured, and several reports described decapitation, or extreme trauma to the head. Now, this wasn't typical wolf behavior, at least not as it was understood back then. And the description of the creature only deepened the mystery behind it. Witnesses claimed that it was not an ordinary wolf. It was said to be as large as a calf, and sometimes even compared to a small horse. It was reddish-gray in color, with a black stripe running down its back. A large, powerful, panther-like tail, broad chest, and short hair on its head and legs. It was described as an ambush predator. It stalked, it lunged for the throat, and it appeared most active at dawn and at dusk, which, for the record, is not the standard resume for your average French wolf. As attacks increased, fear gripped the region, and fear, historically speaking, tends to grow faster than facts. Pamphlets spread the story beyond Gevaudan. Newspapers sensationalized it, religious leaders framed it as divine punishment, and cryptozoologist George M. Eberhardt later noted that France, still exhausted from the war, may have found the beast something strangely unifying, a common enemy. Local hunters were organized, bounties were offered, and armed men combed the countryside looking for the beast. Then, on October 8th, 1764, the beast was spotted near Château de la Baume. Hunters tracked it into the woods and flushed the beast out into the open. They fired their muskets at it, and the creature fell, and for a moment, the beast was dead. Then, it stood back up, and ran back into the woods. Now, gunshots in the 18th century, they were not subtle. Gunshots now aren't even subtle. But muskets were devastating at close range. And the idea that an animal could simply absorb that and retreat completely unsettled even the most seasoned hunters. Now, on January 12th, 1765, the beast attacked a 10-year-old named Jacques and a group of 7 other children. Instead of fleeing, Jacques was able to organize the group into a defensive line, armed with sticks and makeshift weapons, and they were able to drive the creature back off. Now, the King of France, King Louis XV, personally rewarded them and paid for their education. The king then escalated matters by placing a $6,000 bounty on the beast's head, roughly equivalent to $150,000 to $200,000 today. Royal hunters were dispatched, and this was no longer a local problem. This was now a national embarrassment to King Louis. On August 11th, 1765, a young woman named Marie-Jeanne Vallée, no, not that one, this one. She was crossing the river Deges with her sister when the beast attacked them. Vallée was armed with a bayonet mounted on a pole, and the creature lunged. She thrusted her blade into its chest, and the beast retreated wounded but alive. She would later become known as the Maid of Gevaudan, and still, the creature remained at large. In September of 1765, Francois Antoine, the king's royal gun-bearer, and his nephew shot and killed a large wolf near the Abbey of Chaz, and it declared to be the Beast. Antoine was then rewarded with money, titles, and recognition, and the wolf's body was then stuffed and sent to the royal court. Problem solved, roll credits. Except, in December of that same year, attacks began again. Interestingly enough, this new beast appeared slightly different in behavior. Where earlier reports suggested fear of cattle from completely getting rocked by a herd of it 2 years prior, this beast was completely unfazed and showed no hesitation to them. Either the wrong wolf had been celebrated, or there had never been just one. The royal court, having already declared victory, showed very little interest in revisiting this issue. Monsters are inconvenient when they reappear after the parade has already been thrown for their killing. In June of 1767, after yet another surge of attacks, a local nobleman organized a final hunt, and on June 19th, a hunter named Jean Chastel shot and killed a large wolf on the slopes of Mount Mouchet, and an autopsy reportedly revealed human remains in the creature's stomach, and witnesses claimed it had unusual physical characteristics, matching the description I gave earlier. After this kill, the attack stopped, and officially, the Beast of Gevaudan was dead. But doubts still lingered. Was Chastel's wolf truly the same creature described for the last 3 years? Or had something else been unfolding entirely? Now, we step beyond the story and into the analysis and theories of everything. Now, the first reasoning of what this could have been is that this was just a large wolf or multiple wolves over the course of 3 years. Now, this is the explanation that most historians have accepted. France had a significant wolf population at the time, and starvation after the war could have driven the wolves much closer to villages than in towns that it ever has in the past. And over 100 deaths spread across 3 years could reasonably involve multiple animal attacks, and the trauma of the attacks could distort people's perception and memory of the creature, as it has done with so many other things in our day-to-day lives. When a population is afraid, a 5-foot animal could easily become an 8-foot animal. Descriptions can grow, details will sharpen, and myths could evolve. It's kind of like a game of telephone with 20 people. By the time you get to the end, the phrase is completely different than when it was when you started it. Now, some people have suggested that the beast could have been a hyena or some other kind of exotic animal brought to South Central France, specifically a striped hyena. And they're predominantly nocturnal animals, which explains why people would only see it or have interactions with it at dusk and dawn. And they do possess immensely powerful jaws, capable of crushing through bone, which would then account for the decapitations of everything. And they could appear wolf-like, but wrong, and nobles in 18th century Europe did occasionally import exotic animals, and an escaped hyena would have been unfamiliar to the villagers. But there are issues to that theory. Striped hyenas are primarily scavengers, only really feeding on carcasses, fruits, bone. There's also no firm record of such an important escape in this particular region at this particular time. Now, is this theory possible? Yeah, 100% of course it could. But it's not really proven, and there's not really a lot backing it that it was a hyena that escaped, or any other kind of exotic animal that kind of resembled a wolf. There's really not much that can truthfully back that. Now, a more controversial theory proposes coordinated human involvement. Not necessarily a man in a wolf costume, but perhaps someone exploiting trained animals, or just capitalizing on fear and panic from the people. The reported decapitations are a little unusual for wolf attacks, and the resilience to gunfire definitely raises questions, and the behavioral shift after Antoine's initial kill is very intriguing. However, maintaining such deception over 3 years, through dozens of organized hunts with zero exposure and showing human involvement, it's very difficult to justify. My take on this theory is that it could have been a combination of man and beast. There could have been a serial killer that was using an armored war dog to help kill their victims, and it would explain the decapitations, the resilience to the gunfire, and the switch in behavior after Antoine's initial kill. The serial killer then had to train a whole new animal, which would 100% behave completely different from its predecessor. And after that one died, you might as well just give up. So what was the Beast of Gevaudan? The most probable explanation is that one or several unusually large wolves were responsible. persistence of non-wolf-like descriptions, the resumption of attacks after the royal kill, and the lasting doubts surrounding Chastel's wolf leave space for something much more complicated. Whether that complication was exotic or human in nature, that's where the shadow remains. And in history, sometimes the most powerful monsters aren't the ones that stalk you in the forest, but the ones that stalk your imagination. I'm curious what you guys think, though. Could this have just been a regular wolf, or multiple wolves? Was there human involvement? Was there not? Or maybe something even more than that. Maybe it was the wolf from the giant wolf creature from Teen Wolf. Who knows? Feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comments below, though. And until next time, this has been Umbervale, examining the shadows.